To discuss this further, Michael Vigil joins us now from Albuquerque in New Mexico. He's the former chief of international operations at the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. So, Michael, this case is a long time coming, isn't it? We are talking hundreds of thousands of deaths among many people who had no idea how exceptionally addictive these medications were.
Well, you're absolutely right. The pharmaceutical companies, and there's many of them, have marketed a lot of opioids in a very deceptive manner. But even so, the legal machinations that are taking place are not going to be enough to bring justice to the 500,000 people that have died from opioid overdoses. We have to send these pharmaceutical leaders to jail just like we do any drug trafficker. And that's the only way that a lot of families are going to get closure in the deaths of their sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles. It's the worst epidemic that we've ever had here in the United States as it relates to both legal and illegal drugs.
This case is absolutely massive, but another remarkable element of it, it's a jury trial as opposed to a judge deciding. And that raises the stakes considerably, doesn't it? Because in the United States, at least, when a jury of peers is left to decide, they tend to really want to punish a defendant that is found guilty, don't they?
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, this is going to be a jury of their peers. And a lot of these people that are going to serve on the jury obviously know about the opioid epidemic that was started by pharmaceutical companies, and they're going to want justice. But regardless, whether it's a jury trial or a trial by judge, the evidence is so overwhelming that they would be found guilty whether they get a trial by judge or jury.
And Michael, as a former official with the DEA, you know better than almost anyone to describe for our international viewers the effect that the opioid crisis has had, not only on families, but on entire towns across the U.S.
Well, the opioid epidemic has devastated both large and small cities, rural areas across the United States. It's been a devastating situation for many families who have lost family members. And the problem is that a lot of these pharmaceutical companies have put profit over pain, and they could care less how many people lost their lives. It was all about corporate greed.
Yeah, I remember being a reporter in the United States. Some of my colleagues would go to cover a story in some of these communities, for example, West Virginia, and every single person they encountered had someone deeply affected by the opioid crisis. So would you say that this case is a chance for so many of those families to finally feel heard, affected by the mass quantities of opioids that were just pushed into these distributors?
Well, I think that the voices of the people who have died from, opioids, can now be heard from the 500,000 grave sites where they lie in rest. But we have to also take into consideration that the opioid epidemic is not over with, because I look at the pharmaceutical companies that started the opioid epidemic as also being the catalyst for Mexican cartels to now start trafficking in synthetic fentanyl, which is also an opioid.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your expertise on this. It's such a problem, and I'm glad that we're covering it.